totally stopped sprinkling. But so I think like a lot of people like in recovery and homelessness, as much as we communicate, however, or to whomever, whoever we are, there's always like an element of someone's been through depression. And so I think like for me, if I had a better sense of self-worth, there's a really good example in rehab, one of the courses we took, and it talks about how it's like a hypothetical story. Two people get in a car accident, and one guy's name is Bob, and the other person is a woman named Maria. And so they both get in a car accident, but Maria goes to work Monday morning, and then Bob doesn't go to work, or he finds some weird way of not being able to handle the car crash that he went through. And so a lot of us, even though we experience the same things, the result doesn't always seem the same. And so even though everybody experiences depression, hard-working bus driver, construction worker, family man with children, they go through depression too, but they still continue on their course. And so sometimes, like, in all that I do, and like in all the confidence that I like exude, sometimes it's like, you always think, oh, maybe the people that you believe or think that are or important to you, somehow you kind of manipulate yourself in thinking that what they say about you matters. And so in like some long sense, like I was talking to an Uber driver yesterday about how, and I was like referring to a man I knew who kept drinking from a wife who had passed so many years ago. And he was sharing to me how he's married, and he wouldn't want his wife to cope in that way. And so like aside from that, my mother, it took my mom, and she like premeditated this, and I don't mean it in a mean way. I mean it in a way where she was very superstitious. And so the thing with my mom, where her superstition came in with her depression, is that when my father passed away, she was like, okay, if God doesn't come and take me, I have 5 years. And so within that 5 years, she was like really big, and she was always really a big woman. She would just go to church, and she would serve the church, and she would just, pretty much just give all her money and all of our money to the church. And I had a job. I had a job, and my sister had a job. I can't speak for my other siblings. And so her frame of reference was from her, I believe, her mother. So my mother is a Polomalu. Her mom is, and her mom and her father are the matriarch and patriarch of the Polomalu name. And so when Grandpa Polomalu passed away, the wife, Grandma Polomalu, passed away 5 years after, and I was born, and actually it's like one of my first memories of her, of seeing her, meeting her, interacting with her, and then us getting a call that she had a heart attack at bingo. So like heart attacks kind of like vary on my mom and my dad's side. Someone's like we don't eat healthy and we're like really fat, so a lot of that cholesterol goes straight to the heart, and so a lot of Polynesians, we don't live very long because of the way we eat, or alcohol. And so long story short, for my mother, she had this mindset that if she experienced her depression, that it was going to be similar to her mother's, that her love of her life. I think this is my bus. I might have to cut it. It's 862 is 59. Oh no, it's not mine. Oh, okay, it's going to Long Beach. It's going the other way. So she had this superstition in her head that, and a lot of Polynesians are like that. Their faith is, this world is not everything. It's temporary. And so we believe that God has a better place for us, and so when our souls die, it's like all that prayer and crying at church and service and stuff, it's it becomes worth it. And so a lot of them are just when are you gonna take me? And so God never takes some of us, we just sit around just having grandkids and going to bingo and blah blah blah. So for me, so she overcame her depression through a lot of prayer and church service, and she ended up getting the gastric bypass, which I think is a really good idea, whether you get it stapled or laser. And so for her being a hugely overweight, almost 400 pounds, but because of her bone structure, she was able to carry her weight pretty well for most of my childhood. But I think after losing that man, my dad, she wanted to feel like a woman or good about herself. And so sometimes when a woman goes through depression, the best thing for her is to look beautiful. And so my sisters would doll her up, and they would put makeup on her, and they would go and spend time with her when she was in bed, and they give her a credit card, and she would just order stuff off of the Home Shopping Network, and she would just cook, and because she didn't know, because women and men in that time, it was definition wise, your identity was your relationship with your husband and wife. But nowadays, we have all these what is it called, brands, we called it last names then, but now they're called brands. And so people hook up together, and they're called power couples, and they have their own identity outside of their marriage, and it's so much bigger. But in the old days, it's old people still walk around and hold hands, and they didn't need time apart. They wanted to spend time together. So anyways, long story short, all about me again. The depression that I went through, sometimes I I think in the root of what I do, and I've been in mornings, I've been in some of my therapy sessions, and this is where the confusion in the gay culture is when we're overly slutty, or when we're promiscuous or unstable. I had this conversation with a straight woman, and I love it because it gives a different perspective. It's not biased, it's totally different, and it comes from a wholesome family type perspective. And so when I had this conversation about how I value and how I believe I'm good enough, or how I love myself, and then how I behave, what the root issue underneath it could be hidden. And so sometimes even though I go long periods of time not having sex or not doing drugs, do I know at the core of it if what I'm doing to myself or saying to myself, but not knowing what I'm doing to myself and saying about myself to the world about myself, while I'm doing drugs or while I'm being promiscuous, that message and how the world sees me tends to become misconstrued about what I think I believe and value in myself. And so depression can be a almost kind of like a fog, you know, or something that can cover up what's really going on, or just layers of stuff. And so sometimes, like, you know, a lot of people, you know, and it's hard to connect or relate to somebody, you know, because sometimes, like, if I want to say, oh yeah, like I don't feel good about myself, you know, like someone will say, oh, I looked in the mirror. I'm like, oh, good for you, you know, do that every day. But, you know, with me, it's like, oh, I don't feel good about myself. And then, like, I see my family name plastered everywhere, and my relatives on relatives, like, you know, in spotlight. And I never ever felt small, because, like, that wasn't where God wanted me, or where God called me to be. He had always wanted me to go where my heart felt like it was supposed to be. And so I don't know why I'm like getting emotional at the moment. So for me, I knew that, like, it could be a possibility, which is why I do some of, like, the website and, like, my goals for the book, and, you know, like, you know, just even putting myself out there, like, you know, my intention is to build an audience. But what I wanted to do is, like, sometimes, like, I don't feel good about myself. Like, sometimes I look out at the world, and if it's not, you know, naysayers rarely. And, like, I was really like, once a seed was planted inside of me at a young age. I think my bus might be coming. I have to end this fast. But once a young seed was planted in me, I kind of took that skill set, or that learning ability, from just listening and watching at a young age, and I applied it to my adult life. So, for example, like, if someone had something mean to say about me anywhere in a public setting or to my face, you know, as growing up, I would watch someone on TV, and the way they handled it is how I adopted and made that the way I handle someone saying something negative about me. But then there are times when, like, you know, you kind of have to, like, at least just my processing of how I feel if I feel something, to not ignore it. And so, like, I don't know if that's good for everybody, but it's worked for me, because so often I couldn't articulate how I was feeling, or how I, in words, I couldn't say I was angry, or I'm fucking pissed, or, you know, my heart, like, I'm hurt, I'm really sad that, you know, I didn't know how to articulate it. I would just serve, and I would, like, cook something, or, like, clean something, because that's all I knew that if I did that would make me feel better. And then doing other things, like, you know, doing drugs, or, you know, or drinking, or blacking out, or blah blah blah, then I thought that would help me. I think this is my bus. So, but anyways, at the end of the day, oh no, it isn't. So I have a few more minutes. So at the end of the day, I'll wrap it up. I think sometimes, like, I'll see something, and it's so rare, you know. One of my old roommates was like, Perla, you know, because, like, I kind of am in my own shell, and sometimes, like, the pressure of what is said about me almost kind of makes me better. And so, like, if you know what a pearl is basically a bug crawls into a shell. And so the bug crawls into a shell for safety, and while it's in there, it dies in the shell, or there's a process that happens inside the shell for the bug, but what that does to the bug is it creates this outer layer, this opaque white outer layer that people buy, and it becomes, like, very expensive. And so that's where we get pearls. And so some people, like, naturally make them, or like natural, or I don't know what the term is, but they'll just let it sit out for a long time and apply pressure to it. And then some people find like a rare natural pearl. And so a lot of the times, for me, when I don't feel good enough, I know that hearing it and knowing that I'm not good enough, it almost is kind of like good for me. It's weird in the sense that it's like I hear it so often I can't stop it. I might as well just learn how to grow from it and find some value in the pressure of that. But then there are times when, like this morning, and I posted that video of Elle Woods, and Elle Woods in Legally Blonde, the movie. This girl has her heart broken by this guy named Warner, and he goes and he marries like this boring woman, blah blah blah. But because his family has these political ties, and so he had such a good time in college with her, but he's going to master's school, and he needs to worry about his image and what people are going to say about him. So she starts to make herself all better and prepare herself so that way she can be accepted by him. She's like, I can be a good girl. I can be a smart girl. The kind of girl that looks good on his arm. And so she goes all the way cross country to see this guy, and he's like, maybe you're better off, being a ditzy girl or a shopaholic or something. And she just looks at him and she's like, I'm never going to be good enough for you. And so sometimes my spirit will play a scene from a movie, and I'll hear it, it's that's it's almost like robotic, where my emotion will pause and I won't feel it, but then I can just hear Reese I can hear Reese Witherspoon's character, Elle Woods, just be like, I'm never going to be good enough. I'm never going to be good enough. And not in a depressing way, but that's just the way I process it. And so sometimes I actually met somebody on at one of the shelters. I was serving breakfast, and he might be a little bit older than me, and I could see his processing of what he was going through. And he was quoting something, and so and immediately I was like, what movie is that? And then he jumps into his next character, and he is like, and I was like, is that a commercial? Because it almost seemed like he was trying to sell something, but it was, I can visibly see him happier. And so I don't know in psychology what that term is called, when the mind starts to resort to nostalgic instances and memories to protect the mind from hurting itself. And so as an addict, once we educate, I talked to the Uber driver, once we educate ourselves, then we learn that sometimes that's good, and sometimes that can be really bad, that where we think that we're protecting ourselves, but we're still hurting ourselves in the process. So my mind, I'm gonna go get drunk and do drugs. do drugs now. I'm probably just gonna stuff my face, which is another coping mechanism. Is eating a lot. Hence my big old belly, my double chin. But so these actors, they evoke an emotion. So when you go to a movie theater, you want to escape for a second, and you want to feel what you're watching. And so my mind is trying to evoke that memory and that feeling. It's and she's just like, I'll never be good enough for you. I'll never be good enough for you. And she's she goes to school, and she gets the education, and she ends up graduating. She's I'm taking the same fucking classes you are. And he's and she's way prettier and way more beautiful than the girl. Forgive me, Selma Blair, that's her name. And I hope you get better, because she's her health, I know her, I don't really know her, but no, Selma Blair is, if you follow her, she's having some health issues, but I think for me too, it's always good to pause take a moment, whether you're sitting on a bus bench. And I've kind of been doing this, and I knew that in the process of what I would be doing as I mature and grow up as an adult, single or in a relationship, that I would have to be able to be honest with myself. And so sometimes this morning I didn't feel good about myself, and I ended up working and kind of keeping busy, and some of the residents were like, oh, can and just talking with them and seeing that something inside of them, that not they say namaste in yoga. You see something in them and you're like, oh, that just makes me feel really good to see it. There's something still there that's driving you, and it's still alive, and you see the goodness in somebody. So that was a blessing, to be able to pull myself away from how I was feeling, because I was getting tired and I can't sleep. If I sleep, I'm gonna get in trouble at work. So I got on today just to say, and it's totally raining and all foggy. The weather totally changed, and it's all depressing, and that it's I just didn't feel good about myself. So the weather kind of matches that. So I just didn't feel good about myself today. So hopefully it gets sunny. Maybe I'll just stuff my face and have a Diet Coke, and and it never hurts. God always makes. I gotta go. I love you guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.